Hi, third graders. It seems as though Mary and Dickon are willing to take the risk to take Colin outside. I wonder if they're going to get caught. I wonder if Colin will be brave enough to go. I wonder what's going to happen if they make it out there to the garden. We'll have to see. Here's chapter 16 of The Secret Garden. Chapter 16, New Friends. Trying to get Colin out of the house in his wheelchair was very risky. They almost bumped into Mrs. Medlock in one corridor and Mr. Craven in another. Even Mrs. Pitcher almost caught them. However, they managed to hide just in time and not be spotted. It was as though the house itself was helping them. They used the lift to get Colin down to the ground floor, and then they wheeled his chair out through one of the back doors. Mary pushed Colin across the lawn, hoping Mrs. Medlock wasn't looking out of a window. "Ow! Ouch!" Colin exclaimed, grabbing the arms of the chair as it bounced across the ruts. "You're going too fast, Mary." She ignored him. She had helped him into a warm dressing gown, wrapped a scarf around his neck, and put a hat on his head and a blanket over his legs. She didn't believe the outside would kill him, but she didn't want him catching a chill either. As they hurried into the safety of the trees and Mary stopped to catch her breath, Colin started to cough and clutch his chest. "It's the pollen. I can't. I told you. This is going to kill me," he gasped. "Colin," Mary faced him sternly. "Take a deep breath." Colin did as she said. "Are you still alive?" questioned Mary. He gave a tiny nod. "Pollen will not kill you," she told him firmly. "You may have hay fever, and that might make you want to sneeze or feel a bit breathless, but that's all. When we're in the safer place, we will work out what hurts and what doesn't. But for now, you have to try. Please, just try not to fuss. Does that sound fair?" He looked at her mutinously, but nodded again. "Good. Let's carry on. We can go more slowly now if we're out of sight of the house." They continued toward the garden. As they drew near, Mary handed Dickon the key. He went on ahead to open the gate for them. Reaching the wall with all of its covering of ivy, Mary paused and said to Colin, "I need you to hold tight now." "Why?" Colin said suspiciously. In reply, Mary started to push the chair as hard and as fast as she could, aiming straight for the curtain of ivy, building up speed to get over the bracken. "Mary!" Colin shouted in alarm. "Stop! The wall! The wall!" He screamed and covered his head with his arms, bracing himself for a crash. But suddenly, a gate opened. They burst through the ivy curtain, past Dickon, and into the garden. Mary grinned and slowed down. Over their heads there was a broad canopy of bright yellow laburnum flowers, forming a long tunnel that seemed to stretch on and on. The light reflected off the flowers, casting a golden glow on their faces. Colin looked around in wonder. As Mary wheeled him through the laburnum tunnel and into the garden, it spread out in front of them, a wonderful secret kingdom. "See," she said happily to him as he gazed in amazement, "magic is on our side." The robin circled around Colin's head, singing joyfully. "Well," Mary said, It's... Colin stared around, lost for words. Mary felt a rush of happiness at the incredulity of her cousin's face. "I know," she said, not needing him to say any more. "Come and see. There is so much more I want to show you." She wheeled him through the garden, showing him the statues and the flower beds bright with spring crocuses and daffodils. The flowers had pushed their way up through the tiny weeds. Mary and Dickon took him to the grove of giant umbrella-like plants and into the ruined temple with its glittering pool. "I want to leave my chair and feel the grass," Colin said. So they helped him out, and he sat on the soft grass, leaning his back against one of the temple pillars, while Dickon picked up the gardening fork again, and Mary used a trowel to dig out the weeds in the flower beds. As they worked, Colin started to ask Dickon the names of different flowers. "What do you call this one?" "Oh, that's a hydrangea," Dickon replied. "And this one?" questioned Colin, pointing to a yellow flower. That is a hypericum, said Dickon. Hypericum, Colin repeated slowly. Just then, Mary heard a rustle in the nearby bushes. Colin, there's a good friend that I would like you to meet. Reaching into her pocket, she took out some span and gave it to him. Hold it, and then something will come. What? He's here? Breathed Colin. The dog? Just hold it out. He really wants to say hello, I can tell, Mary said. Colin held out the piece of meat, and the dog trotted out from behind the bushes. Colin watched, fascinated, as the dog approached him. It looked at him for a moment and then quickly took the spam out of his hand. Colin yelped in surprise and delight. He took it from me. Yes, he did, said Mary, grinning. The dog sat down beside Colin and licked his fingers. Now he's licking me, Colin said, half alarmed but also half delighted. Yes, he does that, said Mary, glancing at Dickon, who was also smiling. Well, it's tickling me, said Colin. Suddenly he pulled his hand back and looked doubtful. He's not diseased, is he? Not that we've seen, said Dickon. Colin relaxed and stroked the dog's ears. Well, what's his name? He was called Jemima, said Dickon, with a sly glance at Mary, until we knew that she was not a girl. Mary didn't mind being teased a little bit. I didn't know that he was a boy at first, she protested. We haven't thought of a new name for him yet, though, Colin. He's just called Dog. Well, he needs a better name than that, said Colin. Perhaps we should call him... He frowned. Oh, I don't know. What was your father called, Mary? Marcus, said Mary. But we can't name him that. Well, we shouldn't name him after my father either, said Colin. I can't believe he's been keeping me in my room all this time when outside clearly doesn't hurt me. What about you, Dickon? What's your father's name? Hector, said Dickon, looking down. He was a very brave man. Mary and Colin both stared at him. Do you mean he's gone? Mary questioned. Dickon nodded briefly. Would you mind if we named the dog after him? Mary said. Dickon shook his head and smiled. Well, it's settled then, said Colin. The dog lay down beside him, and he put his hand on its head. Dog, you are now called Hector, he said solemnly. Mary, you already know, and Dickon too. Well, I am Colin, your new friend. The dog barked as if he understood what Colin was saying. Mary, Dickon, and Colin all laughed and barked back at him. The sunshine caught the embroidered butterflies on Mary's dress, and for a moment they seemed to actually flutter their wings and fly around. Then they landed back into the pattern again. Seeing the happiness on her cousin's face, Mary felt as if her heart was swelling up like a balloon. Yes, she thought, remembering Martha's earlier words, this was definitely worth the risk. Overhead, the robin twittered as if it agreed too.